Hello everyone and welcome to Mountain Lake Journal. I'm Tom Halleck. Every March, the Chamber of Commerce brings together the North Country's delegation of lawmakers serving in the New York State Legislature to get an overview of the legislative session and budget negotiations happening in Albany. State Senator Dan Stec told community leaders that an affordability crisis and skyrocketing utility bills this winter are the priority right now.
But most people in this room, I'm guessing, are groaning about their electric bill, but they're not panicked about it. Rest assured, my office, the people that are not in this room, I get people in tears saying we're picking between heating our house and feeding our family.
And Senator Dan Stec joins us now. Welcome back. It's nice to see you.
You too, Tom.
The Chamber hosts that breakfast every year to give community leaders a chance to hear from you and your legislative colleagues on what's happening in Albany. You and the Assembly members from the North Country focused a lot on the affordability crisis that's going on right now in New York. You no doubt have been hearing from customers outraged over their utility bills. You've probably been hearing from customers that are paying a lot more.
It's the issue we hear about in our office the most. It has been, the last several months, has been the energy issue.
You and your fellow Republicans say at least some of the blame for the higher costs rests squarely with the governor and Democratic leaders and are the result of taxes and fees covering the cost for the state's climate change law that passed back in 2019. You joined Republicans last week calling for the repeal of the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act.
Yes. So the CLCPA, or the Green New Deal, or whatever you want to call it, the new energy mandate that came out of Albany that's driving a lot of this, was passed on essentially party lines in 2019, back when I was in the Assembly. And at the time, we told them, look, this is it's unfeasible. It's going to be very expensive. They pressed on anyways. There was no cost-benefit analysis done at the time. Now, think about it. It's a state of 19 million people and a gigantic electric grid, 15,000 miles of transmission lines in the state, just the transmission lines. You're talking hundreds of billions of dollars worth of infrastructure that we're talking about. And you're going to fundamentally change the load that's on that aging infrastructure. And they didn't do a cost-benefit analysis. Now, for years, I've carried a bill that requires them to do one. And every year at the budget hearings, I would ask NYSERDA or the Public Service Commission, what's your number? What is this going to cost? And every year, the answer, I get hand waving, or I've gotten, well, the cost of doing nothing is more. That's not good enough. Now, the Empire Center, they're nonpartisan think tank, and they put a number on it a few years ago in the neighborhood of $300 billion over 10 years. We even asked about it this year at the budget hearings. The governor did not put anything in her budget to address the energy issue. It was only last week when Senate Democrats said, we've considered changes to the CLCPA and we're not interested. They literally are doubling down that they don't want to make any changes to the CLCPA. 2 days after that, though, a memo gets leaked. And now let's be clear. This isn't Watergate. this wasn't an envelope in a parking garage. This was an email that was sent from the head of NYSERDA, the governor's energy department that's in charge of implementing the policies, to the director of state operations, saying that upstate ratepayers, because of the CLCPA, not because of the federal government, not because of greedy electric companies, not because of a war that hadn't started yet. This memo says because of the CLCPA, when it's fully implemented in 5 years, people can expect upstate their average electric energy bill to be up $4,100 a year. That's on average. So if you're a young family with kids in the house, it'll be higher than that. And you can expect your gas prices to be up $2.23 above whatever the other market rate is, which means today it would be over $5 a gallon.
Does the governor seem willing now to talk about holding off on at least some of the initiatives?
NYSERDA released that memo for a reason. The last 2 weeks, something has changed. Maybe there was a poll out there, or maybe somehow she's realizing that this is a big issue. I do think that this is the issue of the year, at least in state government. And she's clearly, this will be a budget fight now. Now, then my question is, what kind of budget fight is this going to be? Is this going to be a budget fight like we had for bail reform? She'll do something enough to be able to say, I tackled it, declare victory, get through her own reelection, and then they'll be right back in business and they'll fully implement it. There's so many options available in Albany, both legislatively and that the governor could do to address this, that they haven't been willing to do so yet.
What would be some of the top options you would
Sure.
say
Well,
should
certainly
be
the
considered?
existing CLCPA law, the governor has authority in there to make certain delays and say, the Public Service Commission has authority to say, hey, this is negatively impacting rates, and they could do it in the current law. But there's also legislation out there that would repeal the CLCPA. I'm a sponsor of that, or that would require that cost-benefit analysis that I and others have been asking for. That is my bill. Or would delay the CLCPA years. But some other more immediate legislative fixes, there's a $2.5 billion surplus that ratepayers have paid into for green energy projects that is not allocated. So it's burning a hole in someone's pocket. Well, instead of it sitting there collecting 3% interest, we could use that slush fund to lower electric bills, rebates, and that we could do a tax holiday on taxes and surcharges. It's a rough estimate, 30 to 35% of your electric bill is in one form or another a tax or a surcharge. So the state could give a holiday on that, again, to provide some immediate relief while we come up with a long-term plan. But talking to the constituents that call my office, again, this is the number one call that I get in the office, is about these electric bills. Nobody wants to pay $4,000 more a year for whatever the perceived benefits are of the CLCPA.
And to fund that size, you're talking about rebate checks of what, $300-400?
You're not talking about a lot. It would when you start spreading out. But there's already 300,000 New Yorkers that are in arrears on their electric bills. So I mean, this is under current electric rates. 300,000 New Yorkers are behind in their electric bills. This is not people groaning because they saw something go up a little bit. I mean, the calls I'm getting are, a lot of them, people are panicked. There was a Siena poll a week ago. The Siena poll a week ago said 1 in 3 New Yorkers say they intend to leave the state in the next 5 years. 1 in 3 New Yorkers. Now, why in the next 5 years? Because it's difficult to just up and leave. If you've got kids in school or you're trying to wrap up a career and retire. But any way you slice it, the Siena poll says 1 in 3 of New Yorkers are planning to leave. It's because they can't afford it here.
Champlain Hudson Power Express is due to come online this spring.
Yep.
Hydropower from Quebec coming down Lake Champlain and down the Hudson River to New York City. Will that make noticeable and sizable difference?
Well, we're going to see. I mean, they have to pay for that infrastructure now. I mean, it's nice to see us bringing in a new source, and hydro's a great source, but we're seeing energy supplies decommission faster than new ones are coming on. So that's the other big mistake that New York has made in their energy policy, is that you've mandated to an aging electric grid that you haven't stayed on top of the power companies over the years. Your Public Service Commission has failed making sure that the electric grid wasn't crumbling. But in an already deteriorating electric grid, you've got a new reliability concern, because we have said we want you to fix it and make it bigger, because we are mandating that all new home construction is electric and all school buses are going to be electric, and we want electric everything. So now you have to build a bigger infrastructure. And you're pulling off big generators like Indian Point. Indian Point could have and should have, but for some reason Governor Cuomo decided that he wanted to close Indian Point. So you took that off the board without having replacement energy on the board. I mean, it's just you build the bridge before you tear one down.
You told the New York Post this a couple of weeks ago that was a mistake.
It's absolutely a mistake. If you don't mandate in an increasing energy demand climate, you don't mandate even accelerating that growth of demand, and take stuff out of service before you have new sources identified. And wind and solar panels are not going to get it done. There's just not enough of them.
The governor's talked about nuclear power. You're a nuclear engineer. Is that an option?
Well, look, the nice thing about nuclear power is it is clean and it is extremely reliable. The downside is it's very expensive and it takes forever. I mean, on average, it takes 12 to 15 years to bring a nuke plant on board.
There has been talk about New York reconsidering the ban on fracking with all the untapped natural gas. Yeah. Is that an option?
Absolutely, it should be. Our energy rates are about 40% higher than they are in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has different policy and different view. Again, in an ideal world, if you say, hey, your electric bill is not a factor, do you want to see fracking or not? And then you show videos of, and data of problems that fracking's had in the past. I can understand people saying, oh, let's try to avoid that. But if you say, hey, it's that or $4,000 more a year and $5 a gallon gas, I think the public feels very differently about that. And again, it's technology that's in use in other states.
You talked about the budget, 262, 263 billion as we're sitting down. Another record. You've talked for a number of years about the spending in the state.
It's more than Texas and Florida combined. It's not sustainable. And then we wonder why 1 million New Yorkers have left the state since 2020. It's because our spending is out of control.
Centerpiece for the governor this year, childcare, universal childcare.
Usually more money thrown at a problem, you can buy something. So if we're going to spend a lot of money on childcare, I'm sure that we'll find a way to increase. The governor's approach, though, is universal childcare, but starting in New York City, starting in Mendami's New York City. So the rest of us have to wait. I don't see fairness in that. I'm not sure that the taxpayer's in a hurry for a big capital project to expand schools because we're going to make them babysitters for the pre-K, the pre-K need. So, but that's part of the discussion. I mean, we need to do something, but to just say, hey, I'm going to do universal child care but we're going to start in New York City. I'm not sure that's a winning approach.
Dan Stec, thank you as always. Good to see you.
Tom, you too. Thanks.